Guys, my grandma.
All right, let's start. Welcome back, guys.
Welcome back.
Oh, that was so.
Oh, my bad.
Can we try again?
Yeah,
We'll try again.
Go.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. I miss you so much. Don't you miss me?
Yes, I always miss you. Anyways. Oh, I guess not.
Is there somebody at the door?
Yeah.
Come in. Hey, what's up? Come on in. What's going on?
Oh,
hello.
Hey.
Just the perfect guy. Are you busy?
You want to be part of our podcast today?
All right, I have office hours. I guess I'll just. Nobody ever comes to office hours.
Yeah, just pull up a chair. Yes. Yes.
Wait, is this Ernesto's way of backing out?
No. They're gonna do it together. They're gonna answer each other together. Yes.
I low-key think that I overstressed myself this week.
Oh, it's okay.
And I think I got... Ew, you're doing what Ernesto does, and it's making me uncomfortable.
Okay.
Perfect
Yeah,
timing.
I think I low-key got myself, like, overstressed, so now I, like, got myself slightly sick because of it. You have no idea how close we've become. No, I mean, like, you probably feel like you know, but you actually don't know.
I change in front of her.
I've literally slept on his bed. He's been on my bed going, no.
Also, is your bed like silk?
Soap?
Silk.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah, did you like come out all soft like?
No,
Did you,
I just felt
slide
it.
right out onto the floor.
Yeah, like I was so
my
confused.
god! Now that you're here, I actually had some things because I remember when I first met him, I wrote some things down. Oh my god! I have my bangs out today. Did you even notice that? You know why?
Because
my grandma.
Oh, brother.
Anyways, this is my teacher. Oh wait, right, we're still recording. Okay. Anyways.
It's not live, but you guys recorded and edited it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but luckily we don't edit it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Me over here, thank you. You're over here.
Fuck you. Okay, ready? Okay.
Okay.
Right. You just have to jump right into this. Anyways, welcome back. Here we are with lovely Adan
and Pauline.
Anyways, so we have actually two special guests today.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself, two special guests.
My name is Dr. Ernesto Mireles.
AKA producer, AKA Bean E, AKA Baldy. We love you.
We love you.
I like being
Yeah.
I wonder what I'm gonna get. And I'm Manny Preciado, or Dr. Preciado.
AKA gangster ass teacher.
AKA chill dude.
AKA chill. AKA just randomly joined us. But today we wanted to interview people that are also first gen. Because I know this podcast is mainly about first generation, but there's a lot of teachers out there too that are Latino and first gen. And at NAU, rare, but there's some.
There
Clearly,
is.
we have two beans in front of us.
Yep. All right, so I guess we'll just jump into it today.
Yeah, we're gonna just jump into it.
All right, so our first question for you today is, can you share a bit about your background and what inspired you to become a teacher?
You want to go first?
You're good.
Okay. I actually had no intention of ever becoming a college professor.
God damn.
I was determined to be a revolutionary, and I spent a good part of my 20s and 30s in pursuit of that endeavor. That's right. And I think I made a good run at it. And then I was in my 30s, and I was in Detroit at a place called the Chicano Development Center that I had started with some other people. And there were all these older activists there from like the 60s. And several of them had been in prison. One had hijacked an airplane and went to prison. One had participated in a takeover of the Statue of Liberty. Another one had also hijacked an airplane, fled to Cuba. He was a Black Panther and ended up in Yugoslavia and eventually was able to come back. So I've met some really interesting people, and I really, really liked those people, and I really admired them. And every last one of them was absolutely destitute in their poverty. I mean, they paid for their opposition to the system. And I realized that if I didn't go back and finish my degree and do some other things, that very easily end up destitute too. And so it's not that I gave up my revolutionary pursuits, but I did have to adjust my thinking on it. So
I would like to mention that I know you say give up, but I don't necessarily think that you gave up, because you can do revolutionary things in different ways. And I think what we're doing right now with 2 first-generation students is revolutionary, because here we are talking about our experiences.
Oh, no, I totally agree with you on that. I really do. That's why I said I had to readjust my thinking. And I had to...
Okay,
per. Yeah.
Okay.
Type shit. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I had to readjust my thinking, and I went back to school, and I finished up my undergrad, and went right into a graduate program from there. Yeah. That's how I got to teaching, because I just never really, it wasn't something I planned on. But I can say after 17 years of doing it, I'm very glad that I became a college professor.
17.
It's been a good life. That's as long as you guys have been alive.
Actually, 19.
Yeah, I'm actually 18.
Oh,
yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, excuse you. Emmanuel?
It's how we got to be a professor.
Just like what inspired you to become
an
educator, I suppose.
Man, where to start? I guess quick summation is I grew up in the hood. I got in a lot of trouble. I got in trouble getting involved in criminal activity in the neighborhood. I guess I've had to, I'm gonna just keep it real on here. My original goal is I thought I was gonna kick up on the streets. To be honest, I thought I was gonna make money and support myself and live informally, for lack of a better term. So that's kind of my original, what I was gonna do originally, basically, right? As part of this position I had at that time, I got myself kicked out. I was expelled from my high school, Escondido High School, because they found some drugs in my vehicle, basically, as they had dogs search the school one day. And even in that instance, to be honest, it was like it was marijuana, and it was like a seed and a little crumb. So even my mom, was highly religious and very against drugs in general, she came to the school and they rolled out this huge bag, and the little corner of the bag had a seed and a crumb.
No.
And even my mom was like, "For this?" And so I was definitely being sort of targeted. And I was executed in that way. Yeah. And I was kicked out of school. So I bounced around for a while. I got to community college because I've always had sort of an interest in learning more about myself and just why things are the way they are around me. I'm a poet, I'm a writer. I was kind of working through those ideas that way through creative processes. But I just kind of felt after a while I started to perform shows and do that sort of thing. It is a bit of an entertainment angle to it. And I guess I didn't like it. I like the idea of spreading messages, expressing myself. I didn't like where it became that I have to, put a show on for everybody. And so I kind of didn't like that. So I started looking for another arena to try to, express these ideas and process all this. So I started taking Chicano studies classes at Palomar College, and basically my local community college. And I kind of bounced around there, honestly, for a couple of years, like as in dropping out and re-enlisting, like 3 or 4 years of that. Until I caught what I say, the rhythm, which I'm still on that rhythm to this day. And what happened is it was a Chicano studies class. It was a professor in the class who, in all honesty, it was the first time I saw a brown man in front of a classroom. Because in my high school, my middle school, my elementary school, no brown professors whatsoever. So I understand that they exist at that time. It wasn't like, 80 years ago or anything like that. But at least in my situation in Escondido, that wasn't the case. So it's not until I had to pay for my education that I saw a person that looked like me in front of the classroom, right? And so I became very inspired and started thinking like maybe this is an avenue where I could kind of take on this, kind of using my life story and expressing things. But to be honest, at that stage, I'm still trying to figure myself out. I have to admit, I joined Chicano Studies trying to learn why are we living like this? Why are my parents in the situation they're in? Why is the block like this? I wanted to learn more of the puzzle of the world that we live in. And that's kind of how I ended up getting into urban planning. Because I started seeing it as like, okay, there's people who actually make decisions on all this. Mm-hmm. Once I found that out, I was like, oh, hell no. Like, none of this is accidental, right? Yeah. So that's one way of explaining the story.
I think that's very inspiring.
That was, actually. I did want to also ask, we briefly talked about your background, but I know you both kind of had a crazy background, but I wanted to know, with your background, how does it feel to be here now? I know, and Manny, you briefly just talked about how you grew up in the hood and you're about to sell all these drugs, but now you're here as a teacher. Mm-hmm. And for you, we know you personally and we've heard your story, so it's like, you know, you've done some crazy shit and you've seen some crazy shit. So how does it feel to be here now as a teacher?
Well, you know, I think it's probably, to be fair to my parents, I actually come from a very solidly working class background, right? My parents were union members. They were both clock punchers, but they provided a pretty good life for us, and we also grew up in the Midwest, which is very different than out here in the West, and particularly I think in LA. So the town that I grew up in was maybe 10% Chicano, and everybody else was white and black. And so it was a little bit of a different experience. I think that for me, the things that I was able to experience while I was out, mostly in my 20s and my 30s, and into my 40s too, really helped me to understand the necessity of a political education. It also really helped me to be able to, I think through and explain to other people why we're actually in this fucked up situation that we're in. I mean, yeah, there's a lot going down. It was helpful. I know sometimes I talk with young students and they want to go straight through, like they do their undergraduate and then they want to go to graduate school and then get a PhD. And I think going through and getting a master's is probably a really good idea. But my advice, sincerely, would be don't try to do a PhD program until you're at least 30 years old. I mean, you have to have some life experience, right? Mm-hmm. Because the other thing is that I think it's real easy for people, and I think this is something that could have happened to me. It's real easy for them to get caught up in like all this academy sort of speak and this sort of civility and propriety, and you know, we have to act a certain way and all of that. And you know, I just would say that the time I spent on the streets in organizing and protesting, what I realized was that we don't have to act a certain way, and it is okay to speak our mind, and that in fact, you know, we probably should. So yeah, I think that's probably a big part of it. It's just that experience, right? Like the confidence that comes from going through things like that, you know. Yeah. There's a certain confidence that comes from being arrested repeatedly.
Right, because we know how that feels.
Yeah, we know how that feels. We'll get there.
Yeah, you'll get your chance. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know how good of an answer that was, but yeah,
it was good.
All right.
It's how connecting our upbringing to being a professor today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, I started moving that direction. I started realizing that basically what I'm trying to do is create support systems, safety nets for the younger me. So essentially, that's what I found out. As I started to talk to students, I got into the work I got into, I realized that the way I'm moving is I moved in a direction working with social movements, community organizations, and now as an urban planner. I was trying to basically almost backtrack through all the areas where I felt like I could have used some kind of support system or something, you know? I come from a working immigrant background. My parents are documented immigrants that work construction. Everybody in my life, you know, did painting and stuff like that. And I just kind of resented it, to be honest. I didn't want to continue that process. Also encouraged by my dad, to be honest, that he's like, you don't got to do this, you know? I think I got into, you know, informal, not just drug dealing and whatnot, because I have to admit, it's like I had access to particular resources, right? And I had access to a market as well. And so I had an ability to distribute something and make income, right? And this is very much how people in maybe perhaps what we call better socioeconomic situations, that's what they're doing. Yeah. They have access to particular resources. They have connections to particular networks. It allows them to conduct themselves and walk in a certain way. And so I realized, like, man, I would have probably got into other stuff altogether if there was, more of a community center or some kind of a social movement group or just something that would have drew my attention, a hip hop collective, I don't know, I think I would have joined, and I think I would have been involved and directed all this energy in a more positive way. But that's what I'm doing as a professor. I'm just I'm trying to save the younger me, or just give you the experiences that I've had to deal with in this route. So the PhD, the master, all this stuff, like it's I only did it to become a professor. I mean, if I didn't have to, if I could just be a professor with a bachelor's or something, I would have just done that. To be honest, I didn't have this big academic. Or I didn't really want to go through all this academic route. I never saw myself doing that, to be honest. If you would have talked to me at 19 and 20, I'd have been like, fuck college, bro. What the fuck is the point of that? Like, if it's not going to have an outcome, like, get you something, right? Then why am I doing this? I'm wasting my time. But like I said earlier, I realized that it helped in my own development. Like that first part, the era of my undergrad, I focused on Chicano studies. I wasn't looking for skills. I wasn't looking for job skills. I was looking to understand myself. And in doing that, it gave me back to this confidence. It gave me a confidence that I can be more of a participant in society and I can do some other things. I don't have to be limited to my block, and perhaps I have higher value. And also that perhaps I have some talents that have never been recognized and no one's acknowledged before. Yeah. And so there's a lot of real intelligent people in the hood selling drugs, to be honest with you, bro, because they're real sharp. They're good at business and a lot of other things. So again, it's just the area that we're in. So one thing I take with me to this day is I don't judge nobody. Yeah. People can be in whatever position that they're in, and I never try to pass judgment just because of the fact that I understand, why you may be in the position that you're in. So I don't pass no judgment. So I try to be that presence in a classroom. Yep. Yeah.
All right.
I think it's really interesting what you brought up about if only there is a community, because that's what I got from it. Because me and Adan talk a lot about how we feel like if only NAU had a good community, we would be a lot more connected and we would be able to fight through a lot of things. And it's really interesting that you say that, because I think especially like in the hood, you would expect a community, but even then, like, it's really hard to find, because it's like, we also talk about how different situations, about how we are also first generations. I come also from immigrant parents, and so does Adan. Yeah. And our parents never went to college. Like, we don't know what any of that is. And a lot of people come over here and they have parents that come to college and they have this whole different route. Like, they have an understanding, versus us, we're fresh into this. We have no idea what we're doing. Like, we're trying to find ourselves, trying to find out who we are, and then trying to find out what we're doing at school. And when we come to school, and there's literally not even a community that we can rely on, that we're trying to build. And it's like, it's crazy that you talk about how over there it seems so it's similar. And even now, like, we're both 18 and like we still struggle with the same thing. Yeah. But I just wanted to point that out.
I'd like to respond. I have to say, I did grow up with a pretty strong community. Yeah. It's just we were involved in some other stuff.
Yeah, it was like a different type of community. Yeah.
But I have to say, these are still my closest friends to this day.
It's like a family community, and they're not community. I think if anything, that's family. Yeah. Like, that's definitely family.
And I'll take that further. Now I'm in this institution and I have this role, so that's even something you got to be almost careful about. Yeah. Because I have lifelong criminal friends, right? And that doesn't look good. Yeah. The position that I'm in right now. Yeah. But to take that further, the artistry too, get into the writing, the poetry stuff, that was another community. So as well. So I guess I think those were sort of building blocks where I got to hear, right? Like kind of steps on the ladder or something like that. Yeah.
Really interesting. No, you ready?
I think that community is an interesting word, right? Yeah. And mostly interesting because I think it's sort of the connotations that we put on it. I think that one thing that's really important to keep in mind, and particularly here at the university, is that universities are, for all intents and purposes, what you would call intentional communities, right? Like, people are here for specific reasons, and they're here to accomplish specific goals. Now, that being said, I think that what is also important is that we figure out how to build intentional communities within intentional communities, like a university campus, right? Yeah. So a lot of the conversations that you guys had have been having, I think, are very important conversations. But the only thing that I would say, and this isn't to like rebuke your guys' take on it at all. No, because I think you guys got a good take on it. Is that I would actually argue that it's not that it's not that it's not NAU's responsibility to help create a community. I would argue that I don't think that we actually want them to do that. We need to create the community.
Oh, I completely
ourselves.
agree. Yeah.
No, I figured you guys probably would.
Yeah.
I think that's because the thing is that they're gonna create a community that exists within the comfort zone of white supremacy and settler colonialism. That community isn't going to challenge them politically or culturally or any other way, and that for those challenges to come, for you guys to be trailblazers, for us to be trailblazers, for us to be able to stand up in classrooms and speak plainly, right, and not in a way that where we are couching our language or soft selling things. That community has to exist.
Yeah.
Right. So no, that's what. Yeah, I feel that. Yep.
Yeah. Bouncing back to what Manny said, about trying to remember what he said. He said that that you take an account for everybody's background and how they became in the situation that they are, and how we can respect that within one another. And I just wanted to ask you, like, I feel like we don't really see that as much within the university sense. Everybody's expected to be, this is how everybody grew up in, and this is how it should be. But when it comes to reality, these people all have different backgrounds. How can we take it into consideration, and we can kind of further understand where these people are coming from?
That's challenging. I just had in my morning class, it's Introduction to City Planning this week. We're talking about social issues in planning. There's a lot of them, too many. So I just focused on housing, so the unhoused population. So in both sections, I noticed it's a difficult conversation to have. There's a tension that all of a sudden comes over the students. And in the first session, there was a robust debate, a heated debate amongst the students. And I let them work it out. So what I do is, so like today, for example, coming into the second session of this, topic of unhoused populations and what urban planners do about it, we had a humanizing session, right? Because in the first session, I felt like we kept throwing around terms of homelessness, unhoused. We kept referring to this like some off group in some far off place, like some aliens, right? And we're just not humanizing it, right? Afterwards, I won't disclose any names, but afterwards, a student told me that they're currently experiencing homelessness and that this was a very hard conversation for them to sit there and have to witness and sit through. And I sat with that throughout the night, and I was like, man, like I got to do something about this, And so today, I did the whole session on humanizing, right? On nonprofits like AZ Hugs that are handing out like food in Tempe at Papago Park and things like that. Because in this urban planner, we always take it into, what are the services being provided by the city? Who's filling in these gaps? And if it's the city doing it, or is it like a nonprofit, like a third sector, which is most of the work that I do, like grassroots organizing work, where we're kind of filling in these gaps, right? But mostly we're talking about this concept of undesirables, right? Because that's a term that urban planners use a lot. It's in the legal text, it's in the scholarship. And I challenge everybody, who's the undesirable, right? Like, how do you, the same language that we're using, divisive language about unhoused populations, people said stuff like violence and drug usage. I was like, well, that's the boogeyman under the bed for a lot of things in this country. That's immigrants, that's Black people, that's brown people, that's a lot of us. Exactly. That's your professor standing right here in front of you. If we're going to use that terminology, I'm an anchor baby, and I'm scary. I'm an ex-criminal, I'm an ex-con, I'm a 2-time felon, right? So I'm the boogeyman, right? Yeah. And so just to humanize it, right? That I'm that thing that you're talking about that you're terrified of, right? And I'm right here in front of you. And it's your peers, right? It could be some of your other professors, it's your friends, right? And then I started bringing up some data of some recent reports done in Northern Arizona and in the university in terms of food policy and housing. And I gave them numbers. I showed them that it's a legitimate issue here on campus. There's a significant portion of students living in cars and unhoused in difficult situations. So that's one moment where I just try to humanize it, right? Yeah. Because the first class, I feel like it kind of spun a little out of control, and that there was a side, a couple people who were definitely just sort of targeting, and using really divisive language. And I have to let them work that out. I'm a professor. The idea is that you all think and work through your thoughts, right? I didn't want to just butt in because I'm kind of on the other side of that conversation. So I did it in this class session, yeah.
Okay.
And I excused the student that didn't feel comfortable. We're just gonna work on that assignment, on our own.
Yeah.
So that's how you deal with it in a classroom in real life, that kind of situation. I try to humanize it.
Yeah. Ernesto, what do you think? So we've heard that a good way to do that is to humanize. What do you think, on your perspective, at least?
Could you tell me the question again?
Well, going back from like, you have to take in consideration everybody's background and where they come from. How can we as a community acknowledge that everybody has their own background, and we can, I guess, humanize, but also just acknowledge that we all are different?
Well, I mean, you absolutely have to do what Manny just said. I mean, and I have a couple of different ways to answer this question, but I think that particularly for us, and this is going to sound funny because I know that people don't think of it this way, but sometimes you got to be careful with the white kids because they have really thin skin and they're kind of sensitive. And, if you, they get their feelings hurt real fast, and so it's, which is funny because that's what they say about us. Right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that it's them. They get their feelings hurt real fast. So I try to, in the very beginning of every one of my classes, I try to really lay down some establishing ground rules, and that one of them is that we're in a safe zone, that we have to be, that everybody that's in the room has to be able to express their opinion, whether or not the rest of us agree with it. And that, in fact, I believe the only way that we can really begin to understand each other is if we're willing to allow people to say things that, we probably don't agree with, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, I'm very fortunate these last couple of semesters to be teaching one class, and that is Intro to Chicano Latino Studies. And I will be very honest about this. I don't think that it's very much of a secret. I teach that class primarily to the brown kids, right? And what I mean by that is, I say to them, this is about you, right? And it's not that it's not about the other kids that are in the class, but it's about them in a different way. And this is your history, this is your culture, this is your theory, right? This theory belongs to you, right? Being Latino, being Chicano, being Mexicano in the United States is a very complex thing, right? Nothing simple about it, right? And so the whole point then, I think, is that it's important. I mean, honestly, I'll tell you, I think it's important for the white students in there to sit in a class that is not directed primarily towards them, and to have them learn and understand that there are other people in this equation who are just as sophisticated and just as important and just as present as they are. And I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that they'll learn while they're here, whether they realize it or not. Although there are some that do, and they get super fucking salty about it, and that's how I know they're starting to get it. You know what I'm saying? Because they're just like, this is unfair,
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad when it's unfair.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
That brings me to one more question. Before I turn it back over to Pauline, you mentioned being a trailblazer. I want to hear this for both of you. Like, what is your perspective of being a trailblazer? What does that mean to you?
I mean, I understand that for many of you that we're still probably the first non-white professors that you've had. Maybe some of you that you'll ever have, and so in that sense, I mean, even though there's a lot more PhDs like Manny and I now, there still isn't. It hasn't reached a point of unremarkability. I think that's probably the way that I would say it, right?
Mhm.
That it is still somewhat of a remarkable instance, and so I think that's how I think about it in terms of that. I mean, the other thing that I think about in terms of that is that there is, I mean, for myself personally, that I have a commitment to, I don't want to say this. I have a commitment to speaking plainly in my class and to positioning the Chicano Latino experience politically, culturally, and socially. I think, unfortunately, that a lot of Chicano studies does very well with the culture, and but they, for some reason, have decided that the political aspect of it isn't as important, which I think it eliminates the fundamental challenge that Chicano studies presents to settler colonialism and to Western European thought. So, in that way, I think of myself as a trailblazer.
Trailblazer. You just said something?
No, it was to both of you.
I don't know. I guess even just going to school and stuff. I guess I'd have to say, all of it felt uncomfortable. All of it felt, as you all described, like just no one to go to in terms of explaining this process. That's partly why I bounced around like community college for a few years. I just couldn't, the enrollment dates, I kept missing all these things, Trailblazer. Man, I'll give you a little caveat too. Now that I'm thinking about this, I actually went to community college as a hustle. Now that I'm thinking about this, I initiated the process because a good friend of mine said that you can get this Pell Grant money. So I went over there, I enrolled in some classes, and I got that money. So there it was. There was this incentive, I'm just looking for creative ways of how to survive, basically, right?
Yeah.
How to eat without having to have a name tag on my shirt. And so that's how I got to that. But in terms of like this process of even ended up in this position, the entire process has been new. I guess if we're going to use the word trailblazing, it's been uncomfortable is really the feeling, out of the comfort zone and knowing anything or understanding anything. Along the way, you start to feel like maybe people are going to treat you different. I have to admit, they're not. As I get a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree and then a PhD, I did not, you thought, or maybe I thought I'd get a little more respect or people would treat me a little differently. Not at all. Unfortunately, even my experience in a PhD, I was very heavily targeted. So I was kind of looked at as like almost like I was doing the stuff I used to do like, 15, 20 years before all that, So I was very much looked at as a criminal. Like I'd be followed around by police officers, harassed with me and with my children, coming to my apartment on campus. So I definitely, I have to admit, graduate school brought me back to who I am. Mm-hmm. It's a big old slap in the face of how society really sees me. Mm-hmm. So regardless of how many graduate degrees and stuff I was winning or whatever my CV, these motherfuckers look at me like who I am, no doubt. I can put on the suit and the tie and look kind of fly and all that. They still, for whatever reason, see it in my face like I'm out here to do something bad, Mm-hmm. And that is completely reiterated over and over and over. Yeah. I have not experienced it here on campus as much, but I don't, I kind of move in a particular, I even dress kind of like preppy-ish, Yeah. Because I can't dress like the real me, because then I'm going to stand up in that classroom and I'm undesirable. Yeah. You understand me? Now I'm intimidated. Yeah. And so I literally have to soften myself up. Mm-hmm. So trailblazing, sure. I'm in a position that no one in my family or extended family, cousin, everybody, no one's gone to college. Yeah. So that is new. I have noticed some little cousins and other people. I've actually kind of looked at this as a route now or an option. So I feel like it's had a little impact, what I'm saying, within my own family at least. So I guess I consider that the trailblazing. Yeah. Yeah. And contributing in some ways to even making maybe a little bit of shift in my, the broader family. Yeah, I guess that's I say it this way because it's hard to feel confident or a sense of achievement, or because I think that's what trailblazing, there's a connotation of success of some way. Mm-hmm. And I have to say there's been a big price for success for me. Yeah. It's basically just been a constant kind of reiteration of how they see me in society. And who's they? The institutions, decision makers, people in power. right? Because it seems like we can have these conversations and you see me as human, but that's not the case so much, particularly as I'm in meetings and other things.
Yeah.
You know, even with the hiring process, a lot of other things. So yeah. So Trailblazing and Dea, a mutual friend who went to the same program. She was like a year ahead of me. She's like a mentor. She does research on this, and so we're going to talk about data and statistics. We constitute a very small percentage of the of faculty, the faculty of color. We're like less than 5% kind of a thing. So even in 2024, we're vastly underrepresented. So in that way, I guess we're trailblazing too.
I wanted to ask kind of two questions. I wanted to ask, now as a professor, how does it feel to see people similar to your background, or, like people who have experienced similar things? I mean, especially for you, Manny, you see two students in front of you that have both immigrant parents, and I can say for me especially, like, I grew up on that. Like, that was our whole thing. I'm literally, to this day, still afraid of police because of how brainwashed, like, my family has become over it. And I also want to know what advice you want to give to first gen, but especially first gen Latino students. That's what I have to ask for both of you.
We should probably make this the last question.
I know it was the last question.
All right, good. Yeah.
That sucks. You have to edit this out.
Yeah. Maybe.
Anyways.
Maybe I'll just leave it in.
No.
Well.
Get. That's musty as fuck.
No.
Me.
Thinking hard or hardly thinking?
A little bit of both. I mean, it's what's really kind of interesting for me is how much. I think, first of all, these are good questions. They've been good questions, regardless of where you got them from. The other thing is that I think it's always surprising to me how much time I actually spend thinking about things like this. I think that the best advice that I can give to first generation students is having, being one myself. Because like Manny, there was somebody else in my family that went to college. Although I am happy to say that all of my kids have gone to college. And I currently have a son in a master's program at Michigan State University in urban planning.
Oh, with Dea.
Yeah, with Dea. Yeah, and I'm very, very proud of him. I'm very proud of Clinton. I'm very proud of all three of them. But Clinton has really moved forward. But he's also moved forward with a lot of help from a dad who's gone through the whole process. I very much can see the difference that makes. I think the thing that I would say to first gen students that I do say to them all the time is that you can absolutely do this. It's not impossible. That college is about 80% following directions and about 20% doing the work afterwards. And if you can follow directions and you can, then you can do the work. Now, that's I think the easy part. The hard part is to find your community, find your people, right, and to build with them that community. When people like us find each other in places like this, and we begin to build that community, that is, and I don't want to overstate this, because people tend to think that they try to make it out like resistance is getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth. And that's not. That's just good hygiene. But when we find each other in places like this, and we begin to build things like this podcast, or we begin to build groups like MECHA or the Ethnic Studies Scholars, or we have dinners every other Sunday night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those are acts of resistance to cultural erasure, to cultural erasure, right? Those are political acts. And I think it's very important for first generation students to get involved in things like that, because you have so many people who come here and they're like, oh, soy mexicano. They're like all super proud about it and everything. But the reality is that they don't really know anything about what that means. And so their version of that is just sort of like this, it's like an attempt to recreate sort of like a brown capitalism. You know what I'm saying? And they're going to go get a job and they're going to do all this other kind of stuff. And, I think that's, I think that those are things that students need to be talked to. And I'll just say this, and this will be the last thing I'll say about this. I also think that the way that students here in general, but I think particularly first generation students, feel like they have to finish school here in 3 years is absolutely fucking insane. It is the craziest shit I have ever heard in my entire life. I mean, people taking like 18, 19, 20 credits a semester. What the fuck for? I mean, I had a student tell me one time that it's a better deal educationally.
I was thinking money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and I understand that. I mean, I've borrowed and spent a lot of money, right? I get it. But, I mean, I don't think that you can say that it'll give you a better education. I mean, if you can take 16 credits, go full time, and still finish in 4 years, easy, right? I mean, how much more can you pay attention in your classes and actually learn, have some time to do some extra credit stuff, right? Start a podcast, go to a community group, right? Go to a dinner. I mean, aren't those things also part of the education that we're doing here, right? Like when I was an undergraduate, the biggest part of my education came almost outside of the classroom. All the stuff that we were doing with Mecha, trying to create Chicano studies there. I mean, that's what made me the person that I am today. So, I mean, but if I had been taking 20 or 22 credits a semester, I would have never had time for that. There is I think a false sense of urgency that has been implanted on you guys. And I think that it is, I think it diminishes the educational work. I think it diminishes the value of the intrinsic value of education, because you're not able to truly live the life of the mind when you are on the hamster wheel like that. And that is what is supposed to be happening here. That's also one of the big things I think is hard for first generation students to understand, that what happens up here between our ears, that is work, right? That's real legitimate work, and that we're putting it in all the time. I mean, we're not swinging hammers, we're not painting, we're not slinging drywall. I mean, those are all things I did when I was a young man. And, but the work that we do is important, and that it is work, right? Mm-hmm. It's not, we're not getting off easy. Nobody here is getting off easy.
Yeah. So I can actually build off that, because it reminded me of my undergraduate experience. I went to a Cal State San Marcos. So just all my local schools basically. But I was 23, I think, by the time I got over there. So it was between age and just, I think this, I'm going to guess where a lot of us get, like my household and people around me were like, why are you going to school? You're going to spend how many years? And everybody's just like, when are you going to finish that? So there's this constant temporal pressure, right? Or when are you going to wrap this up? When are you going to go enter the real world? When are you going to get a job? It's from mom, it's from the homies, it's from everybody. Yeah. So you're feeling this pressure of like, I got to wrap this up, So by the time I got into Cal State San Marcos, I didn't get involved at all. I was, like he said, I was, doing mad credits, focus, let me just knock this out. At that point, I had decided I'm going to grad school, and I felt like I'm a 23-year-old. I'm in classes with a lot of 18, 19-year-olds. I'm like, man, I'm the oldest person in the room. I was honestly just, I think, finding things to back up what people were telling me, that I need to wrap this up, So I rushed through that whole process. Went to a master's program at UCI, at UC Irvine. And it's there where I actually started feeling these pressures, these reminders, like I said earlier, of who I am, right? That I'm in this graduate program. I thought, cool, life is going to start getting different now. it didn't, you know. So it took me to a point where Irvine is where the school is, you know, wealthy enclave, mostly a large Asian population and white population, so not a lot of brown people, almost zero black people. So I was just like, damn, what is this going to be like? I moved to campus, I lived on campus there, and it was a terrible, we call it a structurally violent experience, right? So I ended up connecting with people as a function of trying to just connect with people of color, really just looking for a support group, looking for community. And so I stumbled upon that during a master's program, and I've kept that going ever since. Of how I made it through my PhD, how I survived all that stress from police officer, all this drama I'm going through, you know, and I have 3 kids, I'm supporting a family. There's a lot going on, you feel me? And so it's a lot of pressure. And so the way I made it is by connecting with people in the community and building community. I got involved in like farm projects and in a neighboring city, but it was basically just connecting with Latinos, with the Latinx population. So I guess that's the advice I would give if we're thinking about what I said earlier, giving myself advice at 19, at 18, get involved, find community, connect with people, carve out a lane, you know? Because otherwise, it's unfortunate, I guess, but our experience is not one where those things are sort of handed to us or included in the syllabus. We do have to kind of take that extra steps to go find that and put in that work, that energy, unfortunately. I wish it could be somehow easier, but it wasn't. And I noticed if I didn't put any effort in, like in community college or in my undergrad, I honestly had no community. I connected with virtually no one. I was just plugged in with my homies back home, and I figured, like, I got friends, I don't need to make new ones, you know? So I just didn't focus on connecting with people at all, you know? And so I would, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't do that. I would have slowed that down, not cared so much about the time, and try to connect more in the community. So that's I would say that's it. That's a critical thing for us is do like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences. I think that really helps us and hopefully whoever's listening really make a connection.
Yeah, I think for me it's really special just because, like I said, there's so much connection. I feel like I'm looking at a mirror right now.
Yeah.
But it's like we're looking at mirrors.
We're
it's
looking
really
like
funny.
the mirror in the future.
But no, we're gonna be bald.
We're gonna be bald. No.
But it's really special because it is true. We do have to take extra steps, but as much as it's unfortunate, I also think it's fortunate for both of us because the people who take the most steps and have the most experience become the most coolest and awesomest. So
Coolest isn't a word.
Because you know what? Shut up. Anyways,
My bad.
look at it. Look at the mirror. We have 2 really cool professors in front of us, and I think that's really amazing.
Yeah.
But like I said, thank you guys so much.
Thank
we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I know I'm here every week, but
Yeah.
it was fun talking this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, this time.
Yeah.
So your only time, buddy.
Your only time
I'm
talking.
usually just flashing them cards that say
25 minutes.
25 minutes.
And we're like,
Yeah.
oh, brother. And then we threaten him too. We have
Vaulted. Yeah.
But thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you guys so much. This one's for the audience. If you guys are interested in emailing us at the dysfunctionalfirstgen@gmail.com, we would love to hear from your experiences, your questions. Anybody that you'd like us to contact in interview. And just let us know if you guys liked this type of style of the podcast, because I know usually it's just me and Pauline talking.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.